Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today we're doing another gear review. I've got a bunch of items here for you. Rods and reels, like the Curado BFS, to baits, small swim baits, big swim baits, soft baits, line, all sorts of different things that are going to make a difference for you as we head into the post spawn this year. I look forward to every gear review that we do. As you know, I'm a tackle junkie. There's no way around it. I'm constantly playing with new gear, constantly buying new things, trying this, trying that, trying to find those little gems that will make a difference or will fill a niche that I needed filled or will allow me to accomplish something that I couldn't accomplish before. In today's video, we've got a bunch of different things here that we're going to run through, and I'm really excited about all of them. We took the time to go above and beyond. We shot underwater footage of a bunch of these. Towards the end of the video, once we're done with all the different things, we'll even circle back around and we'll make some actual casts with the new Curado. But let's start here and then we'll just work our way across here. We've got a bunch of things to talk about. So this guy right here, this is the new Curado BFS. There's an entire line of Shimano Curados, right? But this is something completely different and something that I've really been looking forward to coming to the US market. So BFS, if you're not familiar with that, that stands for Bait Finesse System. And essentially what this is a method of fishing coming out of Japan where you're finesse fishing, you're ultralight fishing, but you're doing it with bait casters instead of spinning tackle. You guys know how much I love a bait caster. Now, I do like to finesse fish when it's time. We go up north every year about this time, actually. Here in a few weeks, we'll head up north and we chase smallmouth for weeks on end, and we have the time of our lives finesse fishing. And if you guys remember last year, I did some of that with a bait caster. I was using a Loomis Conquest MBR, a 2-power, just having a blast. So when I spotted that BFS was finally coming to the US market, I was all over it. So this is the Curado BFS. We spooled it up with 8-pound fluorocarbon. So the concept here is you've got a bait caster that can legitimately throw the light stuff. It can legitimately throw a 1/10 of an ounce Ned rig. It can legitimately throw a 1/16 ounce Texas rig. You can throw tiny topwaters, tiny crankbaits, all that stuff that you've been required to do on spinning tackle, you can do on a bait caster. And we'll make some casts with it towards the end of the video, but I mean, this is not smoke and mirrors. That's a Ned rig, a 1/10 of an ounce Ned rig, and I just put it clear over against the bank. Take that in. I mean, that's a bait caster. So it's on a Zodius. Shimano right now has 2 BFS rods, and hopefully down the road there'll be more, I don't know. But in the Zodius line, there's a 7.2 medium light BFS, and I picked this one up as soon as it came out. They have the same thing in an X Pride, 7.2 medium light BFS, and I bought that one last year. The second it came out, I bought that rod, and I fished with it a bunch last year and loved it. So you can get it in either line, but I mean, just a little Ned rig, guys. They sail, it's amazing. So how do they do it? It's a completely different setup than normal. What they've done is the spool weighs almost nothing. The spool itself weighs 9 grams. So normally on a Curado, all of your cast control is on the spool. Look, they've removed all of that. They moved it to the outside. Okay, and it's a combination of Shimano's standard braking and a magnetic braking system. That's how they're accomplishing this. So they've completely lightened up the spool, and when a spool is light like that, it will start up right away, and that's how you throw light baits. I was excited about this coming to the US One, because it's BFS finally making its way to the US. Two, they did it in a Curado. So BFS across the board in Japan is a high-end game. Okay, you are going to pay some money if you want nice BFS gear. So I was really impressed that the first reach into BFS in the US was on the Curado frame, because you're talking, I don't want to misquote it, but I mean, it's a mid-priced reel. I'll link it in the video description. They are available for pre-order and should be here really, really soon. So you can order them now, they'll be here soon. The rod is available. You can get the rod today in a Zodius. The last time I looked at X Pride, they were sold out, but it might be back too. I'll link both of the rods. But to be able to do it mid-priced in the world of BFS, budget, right? It's mid-priced here, but that's budget for BFS. So I was excited about it before I ever put hands on it. But when I actually picked this thing up and saw what it could do, mind blown. It's spooled up with 8-pound Sunline. It's just 8-pound fluorocarbon. Now, did you hear that drag? That is interesting. On a bait caster, traditionally, we have no drag sound. On all of our spinning reels, we have drag sound. Well, when you're using 6 or 8-pound line on a bait caster, you need to know whether or not that fish is ripping drag, right? It matters. You don't want to break that fish off. So they added drag sound so that you're aware when that drag is and isn't going out, even on your bait caster, and you can back that drag off. Now, here's another interesting feature, and really what sets this apart, because some of us just plain want to throw finesse stuff on a bait caster. We just enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I love spinning, but I really have a place for a bait caster. But it's more than that. With spinning tackle, the gear ratios in the sizes we use day in and day out really only get so high. This BFS comes in an 8-to-1, 8.2 to 1 if I'm not mistaken. It's an XG reel, so it's the extra high gear. So now you've got a bait caster that will throw those tiny baits, but you can fish quickly. So you can legitimately throw small cranks, small lipless, small top waters. I'm picturing, you know, out here, I'm picturing like the Whopper Plopper 60 on the bait caster, just burning up the bank. Things like that, because I can also strip this fluoro off of here and spool up 8 or 10 or 12-pound braided line and just have that power there. Get that 12-pound braid going where you can still put a little horsepower to those fish, get them away from cover. The possibilities are endless. There's so much that you can do with it, and I'm really, really happy to see this in the US market, and I've already been having a ball catching fish on it. It is an absolute blast sticking a fish on a 16th ounce Texas rig with little Ned creature baits, and you're leaning on those fish and they're taking drag and jumping. It's a blast. Now, next up, sticking with this finesse theme, this guy right here, specifically this guy. So this time of year, like I said, we head north. We do it every year. We go chase giant smallmouth, and it is a blast. Now, when we chase big smallmouth, you're talking about ultra clear water, you're talking about great big fish and a ton of power. Those fish will put it to you in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, they're just strong, and you have to be on light tackle because of the water clarity. So we're always looking for rods that we can downsize with, that we can fine-tune with. We got some big old waves coming in here from a yacht that just drove by out on the river. Hopefully it doesn't get too loud for you. But I'm really excited about this particular model. So Megabass Destroyer P5s. Those are the JDM destroyers that they brought over last year. They just added this little guy, the Baby Plugging. And I just picked it up. So this little rod, look at the tip on this thing. This is a little spinning rod. How long is it? Let me look. 7'2". It's rated 3 to 6 pound line. It's rated all the way down to a 32nd of an ounce. If you want to go ultra finesse on those fish, because it is that smallmouth time of year in half of this country, if you want to go ultra finesse, that little guy right there will load up. So I put a Vanford 1000 on it, spooled with 5 pound line for a very specific reason. This rod is going north with me to throw little hair jigs and to throw little weightless baits. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. So I wanted to point this one out because sometimes when we've already talked about a line of rods, new models come later and we never really circle back around and cover those. And this little baby plugging one is actually available. In a year you can't get a lot of things. It's ultra high end and it will fish those ultra finesse little presentations that we have a need for. So I thought you guys might have a need for that one as well. Now, switching gears, let's run through all these baits and then we'll circle back around. Like I said, we'll do some cast tests at the very end. Where should we go here? We're gonna start heading underwater with these baits. Let's go right here. Going into the post spawn. You guys know one of my absolute favorite things to do is throw a wobblehead. Just how I catch a lot of my great big post spawn fish. I've had a ton of confidence in it the last few years. That wobblehead, you fish it by pairing it up with craw style or creature style baits that will kick. That's the best way to do it. My number one has been that Zoom Z craw the last couple of years. You guys, if you've been with us, you know I'm not telling you a secret here. The problem is that for the last year, year and a half, the Zoom Z craw is really hard to get. And it has stayed hard to get. So I have just been constantly searching. Every little tackle shop we go in, I buy whatever they've got. You know, I try this little creature or that little creature or that one, trying to find some more really solid options. So I came across this one recently. XZone Lures Adrenaline Craw, 4 1/4 inch adrenaline craw. It's a Palinic designed bait, but I picked it up because you can see the obvious similarities to why I might want to try it, right? This is my proven bait. Obviously, that could work. So I try everything. But this is one that I just connected with. The way this thing moves underwater, I'm not trying to find a bait that is like the bait that I normally throw. I found a bait that outswims the bait I normally throw. I am very, very impressed with this adrenaline craw. The way it moves in the water, the way it deflects, and those claws are back there kicking and rolling. This bait, for the next 2, 3, 4 months, will be getting destroyed on the back of a wobblehead on the end of my rod. There's no way around it. Very, very impressed. And this is why we do these gear reviews. I mean, this right here, we find techniques. We found this a few years ago. We refine them, and all of a sudden we're here. This is an excellent fish producer. So is this. Now you've got options. You can have multiple things. When one sells out, you can try another one. But both of those are fish catchers. And I think you'll be really happy with it. I have been. All right, next up, let's go tiny. I talked about going north. We've been talking about finesse gear. Let's go right here. The STH 4-inch tube. Specifically, smallmouth guys, I am talking to you. Specifically this color. Juvenile goby. How good. I mean, all I have to do is hold it up, and the guys who know I'm talking to them know that I'm talking to them. How good does that look on some of those northern impoundments? We've been fishing this bait for a while. It comes in 2 sizes. That's the 4-inch, that's the little guy. Both have a place in the arsenal. But again, we're headed north soon, and I will be mowing them down with these guys right here. Have had a blast with these baits this spring, have caught a bunch of fish on them. Very, very happy with these. Ultra soft. What I really like about this 4-inch, look how long those tails are. Now you can fish it stock like this. You know, that's the way that we were fishing it. You get a lot of flow. and a lot of movement. When you're hopping that thing, it'll glide. Or you can shorten it up more like a traditional tube, or take it all the way up like a little stumpy tube, like that double dipped stumpy tube. And you can do all of the above, and they intentionally made it that way. So both of these, very impressive little baits. Next up, we've got the Largo Shad. This is a storm bait, okay? Let me tell you what caught my eye about this bait. In an industry full of people that make similar products, lately it's been a Keitech, right? Once the Keitech hit, just about every brand in the industry produced something similar, right? When Storm went this route and made this Largo Shad, it just looks different, right? It's not chasing that Keitech. It's not the 30-second Keitech type bait on the market. It's more of a shad shape. So it caught my eye and I needed to try it. Comes in two sizes, comes in the 4-inch and a 3-inch. And here we are, the 4-inch paired up on a 1/2 ounce tactical finesse head. But see how it's a full profile. It's more of a shad shape. It's not that rounded, ribbed Keitech look. It's a completely different look. If you're on a shad fishery and you feel like your fish are seeing too much of the Keitech, you might try something different. I started trying these probably, they first came in like some saltwater colors, but I found some that I thought would work, and they did. And then recently they started showing up in all the really good bassy colors. Albino, sexy shad, some of those different things. Pro blue, red pearl. But that full shad profile spoke to me because I wanted to throw something different amidst huge numbers of boats. In the fall, there's a lot of TOCs, there's boat traffic all over, and I didn't want to be throwing the same bait as the next guy. That's where that came from. Now, this bait does have a split belly, so you can fish it really easily on like a beast hook or a flashy swim or something like that, but you can also pair it up, fish it on that exposed head, or you can fish it on an underspin. That's a little VMC underspin that I paired that guy up with. And I've been fishing the bigger size on the underspin for striper. And we've been having a blast doing that, catching big old striper on it. But both sizes are really fishy. I've been catching really well on both. And I just appreciate when a company does something a little bit different. And that bait, that shape, is a little bit different and is producing. So I wanted to pass that along to you. All right, now let's talk. Oh, we've got a little bit of drizzle starting up. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad and we can keep going here. Let's talk big baits, then we'll talk line, then we'll get up and we'll actually make some casts together with that reel. Big baits. We're gonna go high end first. This is the JSJ Hitch 6. Okay, now this bait was out a couple of years ago. We actually talked about it before, and then he discontinued it, did a complete redesign, and it just came back out. Now this is a higher end bait. It's going to be in the, I think it's $64.99, but don't quote me on that. It might be, I think it is though. I think that's where the price is. But this bait right here with a complete redesign is a whole different animal. Why do you charge that kind of money in the swim bait game? Well, one, they can, but two, much more importantly, when they did the redesign here, it went to a silicone bait. The longevity is there, right? That thing just stretches and gives and comes back. The material is a lot more expensive for swim bait makers to make them out of this material instead of plastisol. So automatically the prices go way, way up. The advantage to you is that the baits almost don't wear out. They last and last and last, and you can repair them even if you do somehow rip one. They make the stuff to repair them and just keep them going for days. So comes with a belly slot. It's set up to be rigged on either an 8/0 Beast or a 9/0 Trocar. That's what they recommend. So take the screw lock off. Boy, it is starting to rain on us. We'll see how long we can go. We might have to shift locations. Hopefully this just blows over and quits. So we take the screw lock off, and if I pull the nose back here, you can see it's molded in, and I can just clip to it. Just like that. And then I come up through that belly slot and punch through. Just like that. It lays perfectly in the slot on the back, lays flush on the belly, and that is a great profile. It comes in a bunch of colors that I really like. Josh, the owner of JSJ, we've known him for years. He fishes a lot of the same fisheries that we grew up on. So he builds colors that speak to us, but he builds a lot of really good bait fish type colors that are worth checking out. And then again, it's all about that longevity. And also these baits don't warp when they're in the box. So they're super soft. Fish comes up to eat this thing, they eat it whole. I mean, it'll just ball up to nothing. But it comes right back, laying in your box, same deal. It's not gonna sit in there and get kinked, messed up, and then you go to pull it out and it won't fish well. So those are all the things that you get with that little guy right there. Now, other end of the spectrum, Plastisol, more traditional bait. Savage Gear just redid their trout. The 6, the 8, and the 10, and I love them. The last couple of years, they have been refining this style of bait, and they have gotten better with every version that has come out, and they are just fishy as can be now. 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, slow sink and fast sink. It's got that cold water, supernatural kick. I love that they drew the hook down in the bait a little bit. It's a perfect hook height now. Comes stock with that stinger rigged on a harness. Check this out, this is genius. It's rigged inside the back of that bait, and then those fins close up over it so you don't see any of the rigging. This is the innovation that just did not exist when I got into swim baiting. And as the years have gone by, smart guys have gotten involved and are just refining these things and making little changes and making our lives easier. Because for years we've been building our own harnesses, and it is really nice to just pop a bait out of package and be able to fish with it. Now this one specifically spoke to me. I don't know if you can see the purple in there or not in this light today, but it's got that electric shad purple glitter in it, and it just talks to me. But this is a phenomenal option, and the best part is that it is a budget bait. In the world of big swim baits, that is worth checking out. So you've got two different ideas here. You've got that traditional swim bait, a Plastisol bait, great rigging that will just flat catch them. And you've got that completely custom, weedless, bait fish shaped, stretchy, forgiving bait, but they're in two completely different price points. You should definitely check them both out. All right, last but not least is line. One brand new, one that we use all the time. Power Pro Maxcuatro, Sufix 131, okay? Let's start with this guy, Maxcuatro. It occurred to me, so we use this line in literally every video, and we've been linking it for years. But it occurred to me that we've never actually sat down and explained why this line. So even though it's not brand new, we're talking about it today. Then we'll talk about the one that is brand new and what I've been using it for. When these companies build braided line, there's only so many things that they can do. Okay, there's a couple of different materials, really a couple of different manufacturers, but the materials themselves, almost the same thing. So it almost doesn't matter who's building. What matters is what they do with it. So how many carriers there are, how many strands there are, and how tightly they braid them are really the factors that come into play. Now, after that, they use different dyes, they use different coatings. There are a bunch of outside factors, but the material itself, Whether it's Spectra or Dyneema, this stuff at the end of the day is a very similar product. So don't worry about that. What I worry about when I start looking at braided line is how long does it last before it starts getting like fuzz, when it starts fraying. So how long does it last? How well does it hold color? How thick is it? And how smooth is it? Those are the things that I take into consideration. I do not consider brand whatsoever, because I know that a lot of braid comes from the same factories for different companies. So you don't worry about that. You worry about those other things. So we ended up with Maxcuatro because one, Power Pro makes a great line, but Maxcuatro holds color incredibly well. So number one, holds color like a dream. I typically leave Maxcuatro on a reel for, and this is kind of crazy, if you'd asked me this years ago, I would have told you no way I would do that. But I typically leave it on a reel for 2 or 3 years of really, really hard fishing. I mean, beating it to death. And more often than not, I re-spool because I tie leaders and I clip off a foot. I tie a leader, I clip off 4 inches. Well, that adds up over time, and all of a sudden I'm fishing with 2/3 of a spool. So that's usually why I re-spool. It's not even that the line is wearing out. The longevity on this line is amazing. It's only a 4-strand line, so it's got a pretty heavy texture to it. It's not smooth like some of the other lines because there's only 4 lines there, so you can actually physically feel the braid. But it's 25% thinner than normal Power Pro, and that is the deal. It is thin, really thin, but the strength is identical, and I have fallen in love with this line. Like my 65-pound line that I'm frogging with is smaller than most 50-pound braids, but it's true 65. It's just thin. They've done an amazing job with it. So it holds color, it lasts a really, really long time, and it's super thin. I'm good. I also really like these rougher braids, and I hate to call it rougher because it's really not rough, but I don't know what else to call it. This textured braid, if you're in heavy grass, if you're in pads, stuff where those fish will wrap and you've got to cut and break that stuff, a braid that has a little bit of texture to it, it's almost like a saw blade. Like when they're digging and you're pulling, it'll just start slicing that stuff. So I really, really like it in and around heavy cover, but I use it for just about everything. Now, 131 came out pretty recently, and I used to fish a lot of Sufix 832. But 832 is a little bit thicker line, so once I fell in love with Maxcuatro, I just slowly shifted over time. I've still got 832 on quite a few rods. The one that I really like, I'm trying to think because it's been so long since I've spooled those reels up, but the camo line, that color will fade off more than the moss green. So in 832, I really prefer the moss green because I found that I would take line off of reels over color, even though the line was still perfect. I'd find myself running a Sharpie up and down the last 10 feet of that line to keep color on it, and then finally I'm like, all right, forget that. Re-spool, put on fresh line. But the line itself was still good. But the moss green holds that color better than the camo does. Well, when 131 came out, I had to try it. So I scooped it up. And this is an interesting line. It's super smooth, super smooth. Where that is a 4-stranded line, here you've got 13. So you've got 12 strands around a strand of gore. So you've got 12 strands of Dyneema or something like that, of the fiber, around 1 strand of gore fiber, okay? So it's super thin, super smooth, and it's extremely round, which lays really well on a spool. I've been very, very happy with this line. And where I've been finding the blend or the balance is that all of my heavy rods right now are all still Maxcuatro, but my really, really light rods, I started spooling my spinning rods with 131, because when you're talking about the tiny minute difference where a great big fish surges and you're using 8 or 10 pound braid and a really light leader, and that fish surges, that fraction of a second where that smooth line rolls and that drag goes versus a rougher line where maybe it catches and then goes, that little fraction can matter. So for me, I've started transitioning a lot of my really, really light spinning rods over to 131. And then I did the same for some of my really light bait casters. I have not tried it yet on the BFS. That's a natural question. I have not tried it yet, but that will come. I will try it. I'll try this on here. I'll try Maxcuatro on there. I want to get a feel for my best option for that bait finesse system. Obviously, straight fluorocarbon is a great, great option, but you guys know I love fishing a bait caster. So I'm going to figure out the most efficient way to do it. But again, two excellent lines for two very different end games. Ultimate power, ultra thin, will cut through heavy cover, super finessey, ultra smooth, lays down on a spool like butter, and is just really fun to fish with. Two very different approaches, both excellent lines. Now I will link all these different baits down in the video description, all the gear. For baits, I'll link you favorite colors, favorite sizes, you know, the right hook for the job, that sort of a thing. I'll give you my favorites and then you guys can go from there. But hopefully this helps you. Now, to wrap up this video, I'm gonna jump up, set up the camera, and let's make some casts with that BFS. I want you guys to see how crazy good that thing is. I was completely mind blown. I mean, like I said, I was excited that it was coming here, but completely blown away when I actually got it in hand. Okay, so here we go. We've got our little Ned rig. We're going to get the reel all set up. I'm not going to mess with the magnets on the inside. See these magnets here? There's one on each end that's marked with an N, and you can actually remove those to fully dial in this reel. There's the inside of that spool. Super, super lightweight spool. It's incredible. So I'm not going to mess with the magnets at all. For now, we're going to set our reel with this guy here, set our cast control, so we'll tighten it up until that Ned rig is just barely dropping. And right now I'm set on, looks like a 3. Let's go to a 4, okay? And I'm just gonna roll cast this thing. I'm not even going to get serious about it. We'll just... I never even put a thumb down on that spool. It's ridiculous. Now, in all fairness to me, it feels a little bit tight. So I'm actually gonna loosen up. Let's get this thing a little bit more how I actually fish it. I like that bait to fall just shy of just complete free fall, okay? Let's try that, same deal. I'll just roll cast it here. You have got to be kidding me. It's ridiculous. Now, we can take this thing, loosen it up a little more. Let's go down to a 3. I don't know what'll happen at a 3, but let's go ahead and make an actual cast here. It'll probably go off camera. It'll require a little bit of thumb, I would think, on 3, but we'll see. Just a little bit of thumb. But I just sailed that thing out there, I don't know, 20, 25 yards. I mean, it's way out there. And that's just a little Ned rig. It's amazing. All right, one more and then we'll wrap this up. Oh, now something else you guys do need to know. This is a true finesse reel. That is its job. So it only has 8 pounds of drag. You're not buying this to go close quarters frogging or flipping or anything like this. This is your true dedicated finesse bait caster. 8 pounds of drag will do everything that this reel was designed for, but it will not allow you to force it to do other things. It is a true finesse reel. That's the way you want to treat it. Let's make one more bomber cast and then we'll wrap it up. It's awesome. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this gear review. There's a bunch of new products there. Like I said, we're always trying new stuff. We're always experimenting. We're always playing. Sometimes we find some real winners. And I mean, the underwater video speaks for itself. We've got some winners right now that I'm really looking forward to continuing to use. They've been fun in the spring, but they will excel post-spawn going into summer. They'll excel when we're up north and we're finessing. We've got some great options here that will carry us into the fall chasing that big bite too. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Again, I'll have links to everything in the description for you so they're easy to find on Tackle Warehouse. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.